Hello everyone, I'm Jay Joshi and welcome to the 18th episode of Learning Java. Today, we'll be learning about the jump statements. So, what are jump statements? Jump statements are statements in Javas, so they are basically keywords that are used to transfer the flow of control in a Java program. So, what they basically do is if they're encountered during the execution of a program during the time of compilation, they basically transfer the control from one part of the code to another part of the code. It can be after the code or before the code. So, this might result in the jump statements causing to skip over a part of the code. And this is very useful in various cases. So, there are three jump statements: break, continue, and return, and I'll be covering only break and continue in this session. Return I'll be covering in a later session as it's based on functions. So first we'll be looking into break. So whenever the break statement is encountered in a loop, the loop is terminated immediately and the control is transferred to the line of code outside the body of the loop. So what does this mean? So you might remember when I covered switch case statement in my video. As soon as the break is encountered in a case, the case is terminated immediately. So in the same case, let's say in a loop, so there are three types of main loops: for loop, while loop, and do while loop. So if the break is encountered in any one of these loops, the code is going to get terminated, the loop is going to get terminated at that immediate point, and the control is going to get transferred to the line of code outside the body of the loop. So let's say we have a for loop, let's say, and then there are a few lines over here, and then we have the break over here, and then there are a few lines. The for loop ends over here, and then there are lines again after the for loop. So this inside the curly brackets is the part inside the for loop. This is the break we have over here in the middle of the for loop. Let's say in some condition or just randomly we have a break. This is where the for loop ends, and these are the rest of the statements. So first, when it goes inside the for loop, if the test expression is true, then this line is going to get executed, this line is going to get executed, and when it comes to the break, the entire for loop is going to get terminated, and the control is going to get transferred from this break to the line of code outside the body of the for loop. So it's going to get transferred to this line, which is outside the for loop body. So this inside the curly brackets is the for loop body. So it gets transferred to the line of code outside the for loop body. So it's that simple. So this is basically used in some if case statements and it's very useful. And the same applies for while and do while. So let's say we have a while loop over here. And so if break is encountered again, it's going to transfer the control. Same for do while, it's going to transfer the control to the line of code outside the body of the loop. Now let's have a look at a quick example. We have a nested for loop. So first we have for int I is equal to 0, I should be less than 3, and I plus plus. Then we have another for loop inside that. That's why it's a nested for loop. And we have int j is equal to 1, j should be less than 5, j plus plus. And if then inside the for loop we have if statement, if j mod 2 is equal to 0, which is nothing but if it's even. So if we divide the number by 2, if the remainder is 0, then it should break, so come out of this loop. Otherwise, it should print I. So when this break is encountered, the control is going to get transferred to the line of code outside the body of this for loop. So as soon as break is encountered, this is where the for loop body ends. It's the transfer line is going to get transferred to this line because this is after this particular for loop body. So it's going to come here, and over here this for loop's ending. So it's just going to come back to this particular iteration over here. So that's basic for loop. So it's just gonna terminate this particular loop inside where the break is encountered. And an important note over is that break does not apply for if, it only applies to loops. So let's see the dry run of this code and try to predict the output. So I is 0 over here, I'm going to put a 0, and j is 1. If j mod 2 is equal to 0, so 1 mod 2 is 1, because when 2 is divided by 1, we get the remainder as 1. So it's not going to go on this if, it's going to go to else. So it's going to print I, which is currently 0. Now it goes to the next iteration of j. So j is going to become 2 over here. Is 2 mod 2, 2 mod 2 is equal to 0, which is yes, because 2 divided by 2 is 1, and that's no. remainder, so it's 0, the remainder is 0. So it's going to break. It's going to break outside of this J loop. It's going to come here, and then the transfer is going to go, lines control is going to go to this particular loop. And over here, I is going to get incremented, so it's going to become 1. Now it's going to go again into the J when it's 1, 1 mod 2, it's not equal to 0, so it's going to go to the else and it's going to print I is currently 1, so it's going to print 1. Then again, it's going to go to the same iteration. J is going to become 2 again. Then 2 mod 2 is equal to 0. So break's going to transfer the control to the line of code outside the body of the loop. So it's going to come here. And then again, it's going to go back. I is going to become 2. And then again, it's going to go inside the J. J is 1. 1 mod 2 is equal to 0, which is false. So it's going to go to the else. And it's going to print I, which is currently 2. So 0, 1, 2 is printed till now. Then J is going to get incremented, becomes 2. 2 mod 2 is equal to 0, which is true. So it's going to break, come over here, go back to the if. I is going to become 3, but 3 is not less than 3. So that's where the thing is going to end. Both the loops are going to end. So the output is 0, 1, 2 of this particular program. And you can see how using these nested loops and this break, we got this particular output. An important note over is that this is not like a proper usage of break. This is just an example to learn how break is implemented in Java. So the output is 0, 1, 2 as I mentioned. Now we'll be looking into the continue statement. So the continue statement is fairly similar to the break since it is encountered inside loops. Now, an important point to note is that break can be encountered in a for loop, while loop, and a do while loop, and the switch case statement. But we cannot use continue in the switch case statement. We can only use it in the for, while, and do while. So when continue is encountered in a loop like do while, or for loop, the rest of the loop body is skipped and the control is transferred to the next iteration. So let's see how this will work. So let's say we have a for loop. We have a couple of lines in this for loop. We have the continue statement over here, and again a couple of lines, and then the for loop ends, and the few lines outside the for loop. So this is the for loop. This is the body of the for loop in the brackets, curly brackets. These are a few lines. This is the continue statement. Again, a few lines, for loop ends, and a few lines after the continue. So let's say we have the for loop over here. It's going to come inside the for loop if the test expression is true. It's going to execute these 3 lines. And as soon as it encounters the continue, so what break did, it just transferred the control. It terminated the loop, transferred the control to the line of code outside the body of the loop. That's easy. But what the continue does, it causes the loop to execute again. So what it does is, as soon as continue is encountered, it'll transfer the control to the update expression. So let's say we have something like I is equal to 0, and then I should be less than, let's say, 4, and then we have I plus plus in this case. So continue is going to transfer the control to this update expression, which is I plus plus. And so I is, for example, going to become 1, and then it's going to check the test expression. So as soon as continue is encountered, it first goes to the update expression and then the test expression. And if this test expression is true, then it's again going to come in the for loop. But if it's a do while or a while loop, there's no update expression. So it's directly going to go to the test expression. And if it's true, then it continues with the next iteration. So what continue basically does, it basically just transfers the control back to the test expression and then to the update expression and then the test expression, or only the test expression in the case of while and do while loop. So it basically skips the rest of the statements in the loop body. Now let's have a look at the same example, but instead of break, we are using continue over here. So it's the same code. First I is equal to 0, then it goes over here, j is 1. So j mod 2 is not equal to 0, so it's going to go to else, and it's going to print I, which is currently 0. Then again, it's going to go to the j iteration. J is going to become 2 this time. So j mod 2 is equal to 0, which is true. So it's going to go continue, and it goes directly to this update expression. So j becomes 3. 3 is less than 5 because after the test expression, update expression, it goes to the text expression. So 3 is less than 5, which is true. So it's going to come back in the loop again. 3 mod 2 is equal to 0, which it's not. So it's going to go to else, and it's going to print I again, which is 0. Then again, it's going to iterate. So this time j increments, becomes 4. 4 is less than 5. but 4 mod 2 is equal to 0, so it's going to go continue again. So so we'll go back to the test expression. J will become 5 this time, and 5 is less than 5, which is wrong. So that's it for this J loop. It terminates, and then it goes to the I loop again. I becomes 1, and the same thing will happen. So it's going to do the same expression again. So what the output is going to be, it's going to print out I again twice, like how it printed 0 0. So it's going to print 1 1, and then 2 2, and then that's the maximum value of I that can be possible, because I should be less than 3, it can't be 3. So this is what this output is going to look like. So it's 0 0 1 1 2 2. You can try it on your own, the rest of the try it on. So what I'm trying to show you over here is the difference between break and continue. Break, what it basically does, it transfers the control outside the body of the loop, but continue continues with the next iteration. So both of these are useful in their own cases. So both of these are very useful, and I would recommend you try to write some codes by implementing these. Now we'll be looking at something called system.exit, open brackets 0, close brackets. This is basically a statement in Java. It's not a jump statement, but it's an important thing which is not technically part of the jump statement, but it's important to know. So as the name suggests, it basically exits. And what does this exit from? It exits from the whole program. So whenever this statement is encountered inside a program, the whole program terminates. So if the break was encountered in a loop, then the loop was terminated. But if the system.exit is encountered anywhere in a loop, in a general statement, in a if statement, the entire program gets terminated. So the program stops then and there. So let's have a look at the same code with system.exit. So I is equal to 0 and j is 1. J mod 2 is equal to 0, which is false. So it's going to print I, which is 0. Then it's going to come back again. J is going to get incremented to the value of 2, and 2 mod 2 is equal to 0, which is true. So it's going to go to the statement system.exit, and as soon as this is encountered, the program has terminated, and that's it. So the program is over and it won't run anymore because it has encountered the system.exit statement. So the output is only going to be 0. So this is useful when you want to terminate your program. Let's say if you are making a user-based program, you can have something like, would you like to exit the program? And if the user says yes, then you can just implement the system.exit. So this is how you can use the system.exit in your program. So return statements, as I mentioned, they're used in functions, and I'll be covering that in a later video. And I would recommend trying out break and continue in your respective programs, and even the system.exit. So that's it for today, everyone. Thanks for watching. And if you have any queries, doubts, or suggestions, you can mail me. My email will be in the description down below. And thanks again for watching.